Shalom. This is the ISUPK under Commanding General Yohana. Today's class is the Monday history class in the UK. For those of you that are new to class, there is a school in the UK. The address is 394 Lodge Road, postcode B18 5PW. So this school is in the city of Birmingham, England, right? And from this school, we teach classes 4 times a week. Monday, you have the history class. On the Wednesday, you have the law class. Thursday, scripture breakdown class. And on the Saturday, the Sabbath class. Then also, do check us out on YouTube, ISUPK United Kingdom, Facebook, ISUPK United Kingdom as well, man. And there are 2 other classes, not in the school, but they are accessible online. So you got the Tuesday Brotherhood class, which you'll see online, and the Friday language class, also online as well. So, you know what I mean? In the UK, there are classes being taught 5 days a week. You know what I mean? Online. Also, pay your tithes, man. Tithes is 10% of any increase the Lord gives you. You know what I mean? We're in England right now getting taxed 26%. Listen, man, the Lord doesn't have inflation. You mean you just pay 10% forever. Whereas in this economy, you'll pay 20% one year, 26% now. If things get better, you might be paying 23%. You know what I mean? So come on, man, let's give the Lord his 10%, yeah? All right, so with that being said, we're gonna get into the history class. Today's history class is going to be on the Assyrian Empire. So, does anyone online know what the Assyrian Empire is? I'll give you a moment, right? So, has anyone ever heard of the Assyrian Empire before? All right, then for time's sake, in the Bible, you're going to read about the Assyrian Empire. And this empire, they was before the Babylonian Empire, or some people call them the Assyrian Babylonian Empire. Reason being is, I will show you on a map. So Assyria was north of Babylon, and you know, them being so close, sometimes the Assyrians would rule the Babylonians, or sometimes the Babylonians would rule over the Assyrian Empire. You know what I mean? So for their time, those were the 2 powerfulest empires. So what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna show you a map of the Babylon and Assyria, and then we'll go in the Bible. And it's key because from the Bible, ancient Babylon was the first empire after the flood. So after Noah, his sons went in the ark, and you know what I mean, after the flood was over and mankind began to populate, you know what I mean, the empire of Babylon was the first empire on the face of the earth after the flood. So let me get it for you. So I'm going to show you on the map. Okay. Ashalam Amausa Yahawah Shem Yahushua Brakta. Most High in Christ. All right, so I'm going to show them a map of the Assyrian Empire. That should be. Bit 10 volume, bit tap as well. A little bit more. Is everything right? Is our volume all right?
Yes, that's good enough. Yeah.
In sweat. 1 second. I know what. All right, 1 second. What to do? I got it. Is it all right now?
Loud and clear.
All right, most time criteria, we can hear too. All right then. All right then, we're good to go. All right, so I'm going to show everyone a map of the Babylonian and the Assyrian Empire, just to prove that they was next to each other. So we get to what I need. So this is it here. No, all in this picture. So as you can see here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but on the biggest picture of them all, you see the Assyrian Empire up the north and the Babylonian Empire down at the bottom. So after the flood, you know what I mean, everyone was here, and the Assyrian Empire was the first empire to break away from Babylon. You know what I mean? So in today's class, we're going to get into the history of the Assyrian Empire, and also even when the Assyrian Empire encountered the Israelites, they have archaeology showing that the Jews are black. So we'll get into that too as well, right? Right. So Mosar, if you could give me Genesis 10. It might be 11, but I'm very sure it's 10. Yeah, Genesis 10, and we can start from verse 8.
The book of Genesis 10, verse 8. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty hunter in the earth.
All right, so now with Cush, who's the father of the Ethiopians. So if you get in your Bible dictionary, Cush would be the father of what we call today the Ethiopians. And from him, he had a son called Nimrod. And this man, Nimrod, began to be a mighty hunter on the face of the earth, meaning he was a warrior. You know what I mean? So in your head, picture some tall Ethiopian, you know what I mean, that was strong and big. And you know what I mean? He was a mighty man on the face of the earth. You know what I mean? The Bible ain't mystical. You know what I mean? You see the modern Ethiopians, don't think far-fetched of how Nimrod looked like. He looked like an Ethiopian. He was a mighty hunter, meaning he was just mightier than everyone else at that time. It's like today in MMA, what's that African fighter? Francis Ngannou. He's the champion. He's a mighty man. At the moment, no one can't beat him. That's what a mighty man is. He knocks everyone out. He's unbeaten for like almost 5 years. He is a mighty man. And at this time, it was an Ethiopian man called Nimrod. He was a mighty man on the face of the earth. No one could stand before him. No one could beat him. Read on.
Verse 9. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, where it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord.
So what does that mean? He came before the Lord, meaning the angels kept giving the Lord reports that, listen, that man Nimrod is mighty on the earth, man. So that every angel's like, listen, man, that man Nimrod's locking the earth down, man. I mean, no one can stand before this man. No one can beat this man. You know what I mean? That's what it means by he was even a mighty hunter before the Lord, meaning even the Lord acknowledged that, yeah, this man's a mighty man. And how did that happen? Because the angels kept giving their reports about this man, how he was a mighty one on the earth. Reader.
Verse 10. And he beg and he begin sorry, at the beginning of his kingdom was Babel,
Uh-huh.
and
Eric.
Erech, and Akkad, and Calnea in the land of Shinar.
There, so from when Nimrod established Babylon, those were the biggest towns that he had. You know, one's Akkad, which you get the word Akkadian from. Like, if you ever heard that word in like an ancient film, this person's a Akkadian. That's where it came from, Akkad. You know what I mean? In different dialects. But basically, you know, from the land that he reigned over, he had prominent towns. One, a Babel, Erech, Akkad. Now, once the Tower of Babel fell, let's find out what happened next. Let's read the next verse.
Verse 11. Out of that land went forth Ashur, and built Nineveh and the city, Rehoboth, and Kala.
So it says, once Babylon fell, of course, for those of you, if you read Genesis 11, that's when you read about the fall of Babylon. In Genesis 10, it's talking about all the nations and the prominent forefathers and what they did. So once Babylon fell, there was a man called Ashur, and he builded a Nineveh, Rehoboth, and Kala. Now, for those of you that don't know, Nineveh is the capital of the Assyrian Empire. So meaning once Babylon fell, this man Ashur took his people and they built the Assyrian Empire. Now, some people may go, well, there's no proof that a man called Ashur ever existed. And even in Assyrian Empire, he's their top god, and he's a man called Ashur. What is the odds of that? Which I'm going to show you, of course. That even in history, the Assyrians acknowledged that the greatest god among them was a man called Ashur. Now, in the Bible, we know he's a man that literally existed. But as history went on, they just, you know, thought of this man as a god, if you get what I'm saying. Read on.
Verse 12. And recent between Nineveh and Kala. The same is a great city.
There, so meaning, you mean from when Babylon fell, when like Nimrod lost his reign, what happened? The forefather of the Assyrians, Ashur, he went and he built the land for his people, which was just above it. And to show that the Bible is real, the Assyrian Empire isn't far from Babylon, which is realistic. If you leave a place, it's very rare you're gonna go so far. You'll go to the next best place. And the Assyrian Empire is next to Babylon, which further makes the case of the Bible. But now I'm gonna show you right now. So about Ashur, all right. All right, let's get in the link up. All right, so I'll show you now. So I'm gonna screen share. lucky. So here we are. So this is worldhistory.org. So again, this is nothing we write, you know what I mean? We're not the authors of these things. I'll zoom in just so you know, like you can see more if you allow me. All right then, so that's better. Zoom in one more time. So that's more visible for the audience. All right, so this is definition. Ashur, also Ashur, Anshar, is the god of the Assyrians, who was elevated from a local deity of the city of Ashur to the supreme god of the Assyrian pantheon. Now, think about that. The Bible says the forefather of the Assyrians is Ashur, and their top god is a man called Ashur. Listen, man, the Bible's not a fairy tale, man. Now, of course, I'm gonna give you the precepts in the Bible how when people missed loved ones, they worship them as gods in the Apocrypha. But listen, even the Assyrian top god, they acknowledged was a man called Ashur, and from first being a local god in Ashur, afterwards he became the supreme one, meaning amongst that whole race of people, that man was the top god. You know what I mean? Of the pantheon, the Assyrian Empire, like the later Roman Empire, had a talent for borrowing from other cultures. This penchant is illustrated clearly in the figure of Ashur, whose character and attributes draw from, watch this, Sumerian and Babylonian gods. Now, why does that make more sense? Because Ashur came from Babylon. So if you notice, he's got this stick in his hand, which is of a Babylonian, Sumerian origin. He's wearing the Dagon fisherman hat, which is what? Babylonian, Sumerian origin. Which means what? This further proves the Bible more. That remember, he came from a Babylon and started a place for his people. And look at the address code. It is Babylonian. We show that the Bible is not a fairy tale. You know what I mean? He's not looking different. So you know what I mean? So the Bible says this man Ashur came from a Babylon. His clothing is Babylonian in its apparel. You know what I mean? And also they worship a man called Ashur, who was their top god. The Bible says Ashur is the father of the Assyrians. You know what I mean? These things just show you that the Bible is not a fairy tale. The Bible is history. You know what I mean? Ashur's family and history are modeled on the Sumerian Anu and Enil and the Babylonian Marduk. His powers and attributes mirror Anu's Enil and Marduk's, as do details of his family. So Ashur had a family. Of course, if Ashur is the father of the Assyrian Empire, to have an empire, you gotta have kids. And Ashur is the father of the Assyrian Empire, and there's his family underneath him, man. There's his wife, that's his son. Yo, listen, man, we can't make these things up, man. The Bible is real. But let's get some more. And his son, Nabu, which is over here, you know what I mean, if you need it. And his son is Nabu. Ashur had no actual history of his own. You know what I mean? So, of course, this is after the flood. So Ashur, besides the Bible, has no history of his own. So you're not going to find, Ashur, lived here and there. They're telling you that there's really no history on this man. Such as those are created for the Sumerian and the Babylonian gods, but borrowed from other myths to create their supreme deities a worship. So listen, man, like that's history right there. That the Assyrian Empire is real. And listen, man, they worshipped a man called Ashur, and they acknowledge him as being a man, and he had his wife and his kids, and they admit that he became their top god. But you know what I mean? Not much is known about him. But listen, in the Bible, we know about him, man. We just read it in Genesis 10 about how Ashur was the father of the Assyrian Empire. You know what I mean? So that's a bit of history right there. Let's get Wisdom of Solomon 14. Just to show you how, you know, other nations make up their gods. All right, Wisdom of Solomon 14 and 12.
The Wisdom of Solomon 14 verse 12. For the devising of idols and the beginning of spiritual fornication and the invention of them that corrupts of life.
All right, so right here, King Solomon is breaking down what idols do. So it says, for the devising of idols, meaning the person that came up with the idea of making a idol. Yeah, so basically, the devising of the idols, that is spiritual fornication. So what does that mean? Of course, when you physically fornicate, you have unlawful sex, but you worshiping another god, you're not physically fornicating, but in the spirit, you're having an affair on the Lord, man. You're having unlawful sex. Like, okay, the analogy is the Most High is the husband, the nation of Israel is the wife, and when you serve an idol, you are spiritually fornicating against the Lord, which is the analogy. You know what I mean? A reader.
Go on. Verse 13. For neither were they from the beginning, neither shall they be forever.
That's what it's saying. Listen, those idols that people make, there wasn't there in the beginning. You know what I mean? The Lord made the heaven and earth. There was no idols there, and they're not going to be there after. And what does that mean? When Christ returns, there ain't going to be no more idols, man. No one ain't going to be bowing down to Vishnu and all these Indian idols, all these Thailand idols, all these Burmese idols, all these Nepal idols, and no rock too, man. No Japanese idols, no samurai idols, man. Meaning, listen, when Christ returns, there's going to be no more idol worship, meaning they should not be hereafter. Reader.
Verse 14. For by the vainglory of men they entered into the world, and therefore shall they come shortly to an end.
And this is key. King Solomon is breaking down why idolatry happens, because it's vain glory. It's people that what? They're going to die, but they want to be remembered. So what do? They make idols of themselves. And now, because they don't want to be forgot and people love them so much, let's find out what happens next. Reader.
Verse 15. For a father afflicted with untimely mourning, when he hath made an image of his child, son take away, now honor him as a god, which was then a dead man, and delivered to those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifice.
And listen, man, that's what happens, because they just don't want to die and just go like everyone else. They want to be remembered. And what happens? They make idols for them. And like what it said, it comes with ceremonies and sacrifices, man. So, okay. Alawat Panya, Barak, Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Barakatha. So I've got Commanding General Hannah in the building as well. Awesome. Yeah. So you don't want to forget your loved one. So what happens? First, people look up under the idol like, oh, it's him. Then what happens to the people under them? They make ceremonies and sacrifices, meaning, listen, man, with this here, you gotta give it gifts on this day. On this day, you gotta wash it. On this day, it's this idol's holy day, and that's what happens. Read the next verse.
Verse 16. This in process of time and ungodly customs grown stronger was kept as a law.
And I'll break it down. So meaning at first it was just a custom, meaning it was just a way of life. But as time goes on, serving that idol becomes a law, man. And that's how idolatry comes about. It's a custom at first, and you can look up the word a custom just means a way of life. That's all it means. But as time goes on, you serving it, bowing down to it, it becomes law. And with Ashur, he was a man. He died, and what happened? The Assyrian Empire started worshipping him. And we read the history that Ashur had a family, he had a son, and then what? Among the Assyrians, he became the Assyrian Empire's top god. Meanwhile, in the Bible, Ashur was just a man that left ancient Babylon. That's all it is. But as time goes on, what happens? People start to worship Ashur. And now it's law. You must bow down to his idol. You must give him this. You must give him that. Serve him on this day. And that's what happens. Afterwards, these things become a law. Reader.
And graven image were worshipped by the commandment of kings.
And there you go, man. And then what happens next? The king starts to say, listen, you must worship this. Now, of course, everything starts at one point. But what happens? As years go on, it becomes life. It becomes law. You know what I mean? Just like with any religion you see now, there's people that worship it and go, well, it's always been this way. But that happened at one point in time to what happens over years, it just becomes law. And what people do it and think that's the way it is. That's how it always happens. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why things like that happen, because why? One king, there's someone he loves and he doesn't want them to be forgotten. So he makes idols. Now let's show you in the history again. I'm just going to screen share this here. So listen, man, the Bible talks about Ashur. So let's just recap on it. So listen, Ashur, also Ashur Anshar, is the god of the Assyrians, who was elevated from a local deity of the city of Ashur. So you know what I mean? In the Assyrian Empire, there was a place called Ashur. So first, he was the god of that place. Then what happened? Ashur died, man. And what happens? People make idols, and you gotta worship him. Let's read on. To the supreme god of the Assyrian pantheon, meaning this man Ashur, among the many gods the Assyrian Empire had, he became the top god. It shows you, you know what I mean? The Bible is breaking down how idols come about. And listen, man, what happened with Ashur, it was the exact same way, man. You know what I mean? So we've made the point. If you can read Genesis 10, so if you read Genesis 10 and 11 one more time.
Genesis 10. Genesis 10 verse 11. Out of that land went forth Assur and built Nineveh and the city Rehoboth
And there
and
you go.
collapse.
Ain't no sweat. So in verse 11, so once the decline of Babylon happened, Ashur, who's the father of the Assyrians, he builded a Nineveh, which was the capital of the Assyrian Empire. And listen, in the Bible, Ashur is a man, but among them, they worshipped Ashur as a god. You know what I mean? Which shows that the Bible's real, man. You know what I mean? But from there, I'm going to get into a bit of history. So this is a book called The Ancient Black Hebrews and the Arabs. And even in Assyrian Empire, even in Assyrian archaeology, when they made war with the Jews, they have relics and ancient artifacts, and they have depictions of the Jews being black. So this is page 36. So I'll just quickly read what it's talking about, and then for the camera, we're going to show you the images of how the Assyrians drew the Israelites. So this is an ancient depiction of the Hebrews. Now, in the 14th year of the king Hezekiah, did Sennacherib, king of Assyria, come up against all the fortified cities of Judah, and he took them. So this is the Bible history, and this is what the Assyrians depicted of how the Israelites look like. So if you can, then carry on. This picture here and the image. So that right there, unfortunately, is a Israelite being thrown off a roof. So the Assyrian has thrown this Judite or from the kingdom of, or a brother from the kingdom of Judah off the roof. Now, if you can zoom in on his face in particular. So as you can see, he's got a woolly hair, a woolly beard. But okay, there's some people that may think, well, that's not enough. Listen, there's the next page, you know. You know what I mean? It don't stop there. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go over to the next page. So now I'm gonna read what these images are. So in the first image, it's the details of the Elashish Judean hair and a beard. Figure 3, Judean being executed. The figure 5, Judean from Elashish leaving his cow and his belongings. So these are all the images and what is happening in them. And let's see how the Assyrians depicted the Israelites. Look, big nose, thick lips, woolly hair. That's the Assyrian Empire executing this a brother, unfortunately, of course. And this is one where they had to leave. So Israelites that lived in Elashish, they got evacuated. The Assyrians said they had to leave. And look at how they depicted their hair, the nose, the lips, the thickness of the beard. Meaning what? Even with the Assyrians' empire of their encounter of a war they had with the Jews, look, they're clearly not white looking. You know what I mean? That's what you can say. So why do people get upset when we say that the Jews are black when even the Assyrians look, they carved these images. And this is another one here. So I'll read it. A figure 6, Judean hair type in contrast to the Assyrian hair type. It's going to show you. Figure 8, a typically Hebrew hair, consistently very curly and short. And listen, man, these are some more images. Listen, man, that's the image there. It's the Hebrew hair type, curly and short. Look at the nose, look at the lips. So that's how the Israelites look like. when the Assyrians are depicting them. And listen, man, you can get a black man out of that. And listen, that's the Assyrian there. So listen, that's the Assyrian's hair type. It's a wavy, straight light hair. Look at the features of the Assyrians in contrast to the Israelites.
Out of that land went forth a star and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth and Blair. Out of that land went forth a star and builded Nineveh, and the...
There you go, man. Listen, like we can't make these things up. The Assyrians depicted this. Listen, man, and that's the Israelite right there, man. So why do we have these arguments when everyone's kind of, well, not kind of, everyone's telling you that what, the Jews are black? Now I'm gonna give you a better one. Now, of course, this should have never happened, but what happened? We started worshiping Baal. And for those of you that don't know, Baal was an ancient god, so-called. And, he was a god amongst the Canaanites. And, for those of you that don't know, Africans, they shave their hair, they shave their beard. And in Elashish, where we lived, there was a temple of Baal. And these are some monuments of us shaving our hair and our beard when we was going off serving Baal. So I read it. So this is a figure 9, ivory head from a fosse, a temple, Elashish. A figure 10 from fosse, a temple in Elashish. Also, the ancient Hebrews were clearly black without a question in hair and face. And listen, man. So this is without the hair and the beard. And look, they're clearly not white. Look. So, you know what I mean? Of course, we should have never did it. But even when serving a Baal and, we shaved our beards and hair, you can still get a black man from the ivory heads that they found in a temple. So why do people argue over if the Jews are black when it looks like history is telling you clearly that the Jews are black? The Assyrians, listen, it's their history. You know what I mean? What you saw right there was Assyrian war monuments, like when you win a war and you're depicting your victory. And the Assyrians are telling you, listen, that's how the Jews looked. So, there shouldn't be any argument over what color was the Jews, man. All right, man. So let's get 2 Kings. So what you saw there in the Bible, let's get 2 Kings 18. Just to align it with the Bible, just to show you that, listen, like what happened there is also written up in the Bible too. All right, 2 Kings 18, and we can start from verse 1.
Book of 2 Kings 18, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the third year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, at Ezekiah, the son of Azar, king of Judah, began to reign.
All right, so now it's breaking down a timeline, meaning, now there's a king Hezekiah who was the son of Ahaz, and he began to reign. So now it's Hezekiah's turn to what? Be a king, to dictate the law, etc. Read on.
Verse 2. 25 years old was he began to rule, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. His mother name was Abi, the daughter of Zachariah.
So why is it breaking down who his a mother and his a father was? Because that determines if you should be the king or not. Anyone just can't be king. You gotta come from a kingly bloodline. You know what I mean? You can't just be the king because you want to be. You gotta be the king. Why? Because you descend from those men. So that's why it's breaking down who his mother was and who is a father was. So that what this man has the right to be the king over Jerusalem or the kingdom of Judea. Reader.
Verse 3. And he did what? And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that David his father did.
So now, meaning with Hezekiah, he did what was right in the sight of the Lord. Meaning, some kings we had of the past, they did what was wrong. They were serving Baal, they were serving Ashtaroth, they were serving, pagan gods. But King Hezekiah, he did what was right, meaning he did the right things that the Lord wanted. Reader.
Verse 4. He removed the high places and break the images and cut down the graven and break in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made.
So, so now I'll break it down. So he removed the high places. Does anyone online know what a high a place is in the Bible? I'll give you a minute.
That's where the gentle.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That's where the Gentiles generally gather to call it where they worship.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, so a high place, it's a high place, but it's a high place meaning you worship that a pagan god. So it's on a mountain and everyone's up there. It's a high place. And it says, and a grove. So a grove is you get a tree and you carve it to the idol that you want. So you worship him in like a bush. I mean, that's a grove. So meaning this king, you know what I mean? He got rid of all idolatry. He took down the high places. So all the idols up in the mountains of Baal and Ashtaroth and Marduk, all of the groves in the forests that we had, he also got rid of them. So meaning King Hezekiah done what was right in the eyes of the Lord. Reader.
For unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it.
And now that's the reason why he did it, because in the past we burned incense unto it, meaning what? We worship those fake gods, man. We worshipped idols, and King Hezekiah done the right thing and got rid of those idols, man. Reader.
And he called it Nehushtan.
Reader.
Verse 5. He trusted in the Lord God of Israel, so that after him was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor any that were before him.
So meaning King Hezekiah, he stands out. Why? Because he did something what a lot of our kings did not do. They didn't trust in the Lord their God, man. You know, when you read the book of Kings in your own time, you're going to realize how many kings was just so wrong. Serving other gods, there was joining us onto other empires because of wars. But King Hezekiah, there was none like him. Why? Because he solely trusted in the Lord. Skip to the 12th verse. No, sorry, verse 11.
Come on, verse 11. And the king of Assyria did carry away Israel unto Assyria, and put them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan, and in the city of Med.
Yeah, man. All right, so we're gonna get to that history in a second, but before he came to the southern kingdom, he took away the northern kingdom, which we're gonna get into the history of that also as well. But now he's dealing with the Judeans basically. So it took away, Gad, Zebulun, Manasseh, Ephraim. Now he's dealing with us in the time of King Hezekiah. Read on.
Verse 12. Because they obeyed not the voice of the Lord their God, but transgressed his covenant, and all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, command, and would not do them.
Okay, so now this is, I don't want to deviate, but this is something you want to understand. With the Northern Kingdom, the reason why it happened is because we wouldn't obey the Lord nor hear him. Meaning, if we would have listened, the Assyrian Empire would have never took us away out of our land. You know what I mean? And let that sink in. A lot of things happen, it's because of disobedience, man. Meaning what? If we serve the Lord, the Assyrian Empire would have never even touched them, man. But because of disobedience, the Lord gave him the ability to do it, which is what this verse is saying. Read on.
Verse 13. Now in the 14th year of King Hezekiah did Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fenced city Judah and took them.
And there you go. And now, what we're reading here about how Sennacherib took all the fenced cities of Judah, this is the archaeology of it. With Elashish, that's a city where in the kingdom of Judah. So we've showed you the history side. This is the biblical side to it, man. Where this is when Sennacherib, who was the king of the Assyrian Empire at that time, that's when he did it. Read on.
Verse 14. And Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria to Lachish, saying, I have offended, return from me that which thou puttest on me, will I bear. And the king of Assyria appointed unto Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold.
So meaning what? Hezekiah, he was afraid. So he said to the king of the Assyrian Empire, what, like, have I offended thee? And the Assyrian Empire made him give him gold, man. Meaning what? He was a tribute to the Assyrian Empire. Now, of course, as you read on in your own time, Hezekiah, he didn't appear again. The Assyrian Empire came back, and the Lord put a plague among the Assyrian Empire, which is in history too, that the Assyrian Empire encamped around Jerusalem, and for some reason their men died. That is a historical fact, which I'll get to in a moment too. But let's get a chapter before. Let's get 2 Kings 17 and the 17th verse.
2 Kings 17 and the 17th verse, right? Okay, 2 Kings 17 verse 17. And they accused their sons and their daughters to pass through. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and use divination and enchantment, and sold themselves to the devil to do evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger.
All right. So now this is talking about the northern kingdom right here. And the reason why the Assyrian Empire was able to overtake them was because why? We moved the Lord to anger, man. You know, when you read books like Hosea, it's directly to the northern kingdom. And what was the problem that the northern kingdom had at that time? Idolatry, man. You mean that they couldn't leave the idols alone, and there was prophets warning them, men of God warning them that listen, if you don't stop, the Lord is gonna, is going to pour his wrath on you. And no one listened to what the Lord used the Assyrian Empire. Reader.
Karawankan, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. Verse 18. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only.
So meaning what? The Lord removed them out of his sight, meaning what? The Lord took them out the land. And listen, we got archaeology to show you that what? The Assyrians removed the 10 tribes out of their land into the Assyrian land. They lived in Nineveh for a time. You know what I mean? Then in history, they lived in Afghanistan for a time. Then they came to a new world, which is called the Americas, which you'll read about in the Apocrypha. But what we're going to do, we're going to show you out of this book that even this piece of what we are reading from the Bible is historical. So I'm going to give you the name of the book in a second here. Just break it down for you. All right, in Babylon section. All right, I got it. All right, so this is in the section of the Assyrian Empire. I'll give you the name of the book. Yeah, quick one. All right, I know what's good. All right, so these are the artifacts that the Assyrians did when beating the northern kingdom. All right. All right, so we're gonna start. We might have to start backwards. All right, so this one here is how King Jehu paid a tribute to Shalmaneser III, is shown in a series of reliefs in the second row of the black obelisk. The king of Israel grovels in the dust before the Assyrian king. So this is Assyrian archaeology of one of our kings, Jehu, unfortunately on his hands and knees before him. So we'll show you right here. So that's King Jehu at the top. So the man on his knees, that is King Jehu, one of the kings that we had at that time, and he's bowing before the Assyrian king Shalmaneser. So the Israelites, of course, did exist, and when he did this, the Assyrians on an obelisk, they documented it. You know what I mean? I got you.
Show the rest. Show the rest.
Yeah, so basically, on the rest of this image, it's the Israelites bringing, like bronze, gold, all kind of things to give to the Assyrian king Shalmaneser, and that is a Assyrian obelisk of the events. We showed you that the Bible is not no fairy tale. The Assyrians ain't spending so much time carving a imaginary race of people. All right, we drop that one. Show you some more. Oh, sorry, and the book is called A Bible as History in Pictures by Werner Keller. You know what I mean? So you can get this book for real cheap as well. All right, let's get a bit more. All right, this one is the Assyrian Empire, again attacking the northern kingdom, but under the Assyrian king Tiglath-Pileser III. So that's the Assyrian king. As you see, they have more straight wavy hair in contrast to the hair of the Israelites. So that's Tiglath-Pileser there, and that's the Assyrian army waging war on the northern kingdom right there. All right, let's get a bit more. And this is another one. So basically on this one here, you have the Assyrians taking one of our towns. So they're climbing up on the walls, they're killing people outside, and they depict them as real big, showing that they're dominant and we're not. That's the imagery in this right here. So they're using their ladders to get over the walls. They're killing people outside of it. And also they're using their bow and arrows against us as well. Got it. Let's get some more. And also, this is a relic where the Assyrians wrote it, that how they came up and they took the northern kingdom as well. So if you can just show that one, and that's what the writing says. It even tells you that they took like their capitals. So of course, that's a huge rock with writing, and it tells you that they came up against us. They took our villages, our towns, and they exiled us off to another land. So they wrote it down also as well. This is another one. I mean, how much archaeology does someone need, man? Go on, Diego. So that's the Assyrian army invading us. And there's people trying to fight back. I mean, you look right at the top, there's Israelites trying to throw rocks down, but the Assyrians got their ladders up, they're invading. And that's when they carried us away a captive. So the guy at the far back, that's a soldier of the Assyrian Empire, and that's the Israelites with their belongings on their back being taken away. And under that image I showed you, they even have the Bible verse. So Israel was carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. 2 Kings 16 and 23. And he breaks it down. Accompanied by their sheep and their belongings slung over their shoulders, captives are being driven out of Ashtaroth, a town to the east of the Lake of Galilee, by Assyrian warriors. So even they know what is happening in that image right there, man. So, you know, I mean, and even on all those images, the Jews are black, like their features, the hair texture, all those things, you can't get a modern day Israeli out of that. No chance. But let's get back to Hezekiah and what the Lord did for him. Let me get the precepts I need. Second. All right, 1 second. Second's getting the Bible verse. All right, it is 2 Kings 19 and 34.
Second Kings 19.
Matter of fact, start from verse 33.
Come on. The book of 2 Kings 19, verse 33. By the way that he came by, the same shall he return, and shall not come in this city, saith the Lord.
So what did the Lord tell Hezekiah? That listen, the Assyrian Empire is not going to take Jerusalem. Yes, they took other places, but Jerusalem, the Assyrian Empire is not going to take this place. Read up.
Verse 34. For I will defend this city to save it from mine own sake and for my servant David's sake.
So now the prophet of the Lord, which was Isaiah at this time, told Hezekiah, listen, the Lord's going to defend this place. The Assyrian Empire is not going to take Jerusalem. It's not going to happen. Why? Because the Lord doesn't want them to. Read up.
Verse 35. And it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrian 185,000, and when they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpse.
So now the Bible says, you know what I mean, that it came to pass, and the angel of the Lord went out, and you know, with the Assyrian army that was outside of the walls of Jerusalem, the angel started to smite them, and there died many of them. Now, is this a fact? Let's find out, man. So I'm going to go into a bit of history from the historian Herodotus. All right, let me get it. Then I got a question on line 2, so I'll get to that next. So now, this is the Assyrian accounts of what we read about with Hezekiah and about Jerusalem, yeah? So this is the Sennacherib prism. So meaning, if you want to find out, you know what I mean, if it's true, there's an artifact you can go to and you can read about it. So let me put on the bigger screen.
So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed, and went and returned, and dwelt at Nineveh.
All right, so which details events of Sennacherib's campaign against Judah, was discovered in the ruins of Nineveh in 1830 and is now stored at the Oriental Institute in Chicago, Illinois. So if you want to see this artifact, if you was to go to Chicago, Illinois in America, you can see it. The account dates from 690 BCE. The text of the prism boasts how Sennacherib destroyed 46 of Judah's cities and trapped Hezekiah in Jerusalem like a caged bird. So, like what we read in 2 Kings, you mean the Assyrian Empire was around Jerusalem where Hezekiah was. The text goes on to describe how the terrifying splendor of the Assyrian army caused the Arabs and mercenaries reinforcing the city to desert. So meaning Hezekiah paid for help, but the Assyrian Empire was that rough. Even his paid help left him like nah, F that Hezekiah. You know what I mean? So the Arabs that Hezekiah paid to help him fight against the Assyrian Empire, they left him. It adds that the Assyrian king returned to Assyria, where he later received a large tribute from Judah. We read that in the Bible too. How the first time is like, you know, king like, what do I need to do? And he was paying him a tribute in 2 Kings 18. We read that. So listen, so Sennacherib is saying what the Bible's saying. You see, there's no conflict. This description inevitably varies from the Jewish version in the Tanakh. So the massive Assyrian casualties mentioned in the Tanakh are not mentioned in the Assyrian version. So this is where people go, well, the Bible says that the Assyrian army died, but the Assyrians never write about this death. And of course, no nation writes about their loss, only the Bible does. You can go through Egyptian history. There's been facts where Egyptians lost wars, and on the hieroglyphs, you never find it. On the hieroglyphs, that loss is just never there. And people know for a fact that the Egyptians lost that war, but they never write it. Why? Because it's embarrassing. You know what I mean? So it reads, after he besieged Jerusalem, Sennacherib was able to give the surrounding towns to the Assyrian vassal rulers in Ekron, Gaza, and Ashdod. His army still existed when he conducted campaigns. Let me get to the point. Syria, the Medes. Okay. All right. So other theories. Herodotus wrote that the Assyrian army was overrun by mice when attacking Egypt. Some biblical scholars take this to an illusion that the Assyrian army suffered the effect of a mouse rat-borne disease, such as the bubonic plague. So meaning, of course, in the Bible it says the angel of the Lord destroyed the Assyrian army, but in history, it was rats that done it. So whether it was rats, the Lord still sent an angel to do it, man. You know what I mean? So this is agreeing with the Bible. The Bible says the angel done it. And listen, man, the angel sent the rats. You know what I mean? Either way, the Assyrian army died, as the Lord said. And Herodotus broke it down. Yeah, basically, you know what I mean? There had a lot of rat infestation among them. And that killed the Assyrian Empire. 1 second. Yes, Even without relying on that explanation, John Bright suggested it was an epidemic of some kind that saved Jerusalem. So even historians know in the Bible that rat infestation that was around the Assyrian Empire saved Hezekiah and Jerusalem. And what did the Bible say? That the angel of the Lord went out and smote the camp of the Assyrians. So meaning that's how the angel it did it by the rats, man. Either way it happened, you know me. And that saved Jerusalem. Which shows you that the Bible ain't no joke. The Bible said that's how basically the point being is the Assyrian Empire died by big numbers, and it said the angel of the Lord did it. And how did it happen? By rats. So you know what I mean? Their nastiness and filth, the angel of the Lord used that against them, which is the point. All right, then I got a question online. Okay, this question is very good actually. So is that so from Silva Salazar? Could you give a breakdown on African tribes not being Israelites? Okay. If you can, Mosar, give me the curse about we shall be a few in number. All right, so the question is, could you give a breakdown on African tribes not being Israelites? Okay, there's a book. It's called Hebrewisms of West Africa.
He shall be few in number.
And what's funny is many people try to use the book to prove that, the Ashantis, Israelites, the Igbos, and many West African tribes. When you read the book carefully, that's what it's not saying. It's called Hebrewisms of West Africa, meaning among those tribes, there's a Hebrew influence. It doesn't say they're Israelites. There's an influence, and the point of the book is to show you that there was clearly a lot of Israelites in West Africa. That's what a lot of people don't get when they read the book. They want to read the book and see Ashanti Israelites, Igbo Israelites, the Elemba tribe Israelites, the Mandingo tribe Israelites, and that's not what the book is saying. If you read it carefully, it's telling you in West Africa there was a strong Hebrew influence, which shows you that many Jews were there, and the author goes into the fall of Jerusalem, how many Israelites went to West Africa. That's what the book is saying. The book is not saying the Ashantis and the Igbos are Israelites, which is where a lot of people fall short. And I'm going to show you in the Bible too. You got it for me. For you in
we find that Numbers 14 verse 28.
There's one in Deuteronomy as well. I'll find it real quick.
What number in Deuteronomy? Because this one I don't really had enough.
Oh, it's Deuteronomy 28. Yeah.
Let's get that one on Deuteronomy 28.
All right, we get the exact verse here. Then we're going to get back into Kings because we read how the Lord saved Hezekiah. It aligns up with history. There's more which lines up with history, some more too, as well. But let's get few in number. Deuteronomy. I'll find it. All right, it is Deuteronomy 28 and 62.
The book of Deuteronomy 28 verse 62. And ye shall be left few in numbers, whereas you were as the stars of heaven for multitude, right. Because though.
And so I'll break it down. So in Deuteronomy 28 from verse 15 and down, it's the curses, meaning the things that are a punishment. And a punishment in the Bible is where we are going to be a few in number. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this. In Ghana, the Ashanti tribe, they are the biggest tribe. They are the dominating tribe. In Nigeria, the Igbo tribe is the biggest tribe. A curse in the Bible is wherever we are a few in number. Those tribes are not few, man. Do you mean those tribes run wherever they are? The Ashanti tribe is the biggest tribe in Ghana. Look it up. They are the biggest ethnic group. In Nigeria, the Igbo tribe is the biggest group. You know what I mean? There's millions of them. But guess what? In the UK, the black population is 1%, man. We are few in number. You know what I mean? You get the point? You mean wherever we are, a curse is what? You mean we're going to be a minority, not the majority? In Benin, the Mandingo tribe is the dominant tribe, man. The Lemba tribe is the dominant tribe. The Yoruba tribe, they are the dominant tribe. They're not few in number nowhere. Which what? That doesn't fit the curse of the Bible, man. You know what I mean? So many of us in the UK, we think there's many of us. Why? Because we live in an area where there's black people around us. But if you compare us to all of the UK, we are 1%, man. Meaning black people that live in Birmingham, London, Manchester, Liverpool, Yorkshire, all of us together are just 1%. But living around each other, we think there's so much when really we are few in number. Even in America, the black population is only 11%. And the rest is white and all other people. We are few in number, man. Even in Amsterdam, we are few in number. So if you're saying, well, the Ashanti tribe is this and that, listen, man, then now we got a contradiction, man. We got a problem because those tribes are the biggest tribes wherever they are. You had something? Am I also?
Yeah. If you read along, you will realize that it says in the Bible that wherever we go, we shall be plucked off the land. The Ashanti has never plucked off their land. They're still there, and they rule in multitude.
There you go. Listen, you know what I mean? I can't say that any better. The Ashantis sold us. That's a fact. The Igbo tribe sold us. That is a fact. You mean the Mandingo tribe sold slaves? You mean all those tribes that people tried to join onto us, they sold us? And what people do, because they have certain Israelite influences, they go, no, they're us, and they're not us, man. You know, the book Hebrewisms of West Africa, what a lot of people misread is telling you these tribes got an influence of a Judaism. It's not telling you they're the Jews, meaning what? There was influence by the Israelites at one point when we dominated West Africa. That's what it's telling you. So I mean what? The Ashanti tribe has an Israelite influence. The Igbo tribe has an Israelite influence. The Mandingo tribe has an Israelite influence. But are they Israelites? No, they're not. You know what I mean? So that's the breakdown on it. You know what I mean? You can buy the book, read it, you know what I mean? All of that stuff, right? All right then. All right then, let's get back to 2 Kings. Where was we at? 19?
Second Kings 19, verse 33.
All right, let's read that. 2 Kings 19 and 33.
2 Kings 19, verse 33. By the way that they come, by the same shall ye return, and shall not come into the city. Into this city, saith the Lord. Look on the bigger screen. Struggling hiding. 2 Kings 19. Karawankan, by the way that he comes, by the same shall he return, and shall not come into this city, saith the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
34. For I will defend this city to save it from mine, for mine own sake and for my servant David's sake. Verse 35. And it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote all the camps of the Assyrian 184,500. And when they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses.
So now listen, man. Imagine that they wake up and everyone is all dead, man. Now, of course, we read what Herodotus found out that it was a rat infestation. But of course, you know what I mean, that's the power of the Lord. You know what I mean? Of course, things physically happen. You know what I mean? So loads of the Assyrian Empire, they wake up, they're just dead. Read on.
Verse 36. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and went and returned and dwelt in Nineveh. Verse 37. And it came to pass, as he was worshipping in the house of Nasarach, his god, that Adramelech and Sarachas, his son, smote him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Amarnia. And Esarhaddon, his son, reigned in his stead.
All right. So now in the Bible it says that the Assyrian king Sennacherib, he was killed by his sons. Is this in history? Yes, it is. So so basically, if you read in Isaiah, he prophesied that the king of Assyria would get killed by his sons. Let's get it in history. Let's prove to you. Listen, that this king Sennacherib, you know what I mean, he was killed by his kids, man. You know what I mean? And let's show you that. Right, so let me get it. And listen, this ain't nothing we wrote, man. You know what I mean? This is worldhistory.org. So, you know what I mean? This ain't nothing we, you know what I mean, can write anything on, right? Let's get it for you. Right here, yeah. Right. See if this is the one I want. Right, so I'll screen share it with you and then I'll get to what we need. All right, so just to let you know, this is nothing we wrote. So this is worldhistory.org, and this is going into Sennacherib. So that same king that we read about in the Bible. So it reads, I'll just basically break down who he is so no one gets confused about who we're talking about. Sennacherib, 705 to 681 BCE, was the second king of the Sargonid dynasty of Assyria, founded by his father, Sargon II. He is one of the most famous Assyrian kings, owing to the part he played in narratives of the biblical Old Testament, 2 Kings, which we read, 2 Chronicles, and Isaiah. So he's more known because in the Bible, when he was ruling, he had more interactions with us than other Assyrian kings, right? So let's skip to his death and let's prove how he died. and it's in Assyrian records how he died, right? So it's gonna scroll down real quick. You know, this talks about him and all other stuff. A second, his death. Okay, so this is the part. So, matter of fact, in your own time, so when his men died, he went back to Nineveh, his homeland. History even says that too, that when that happened, he returned. Now, in the Bible, of course, it's breaking down history. As soon as he went back to Nineveh, he didn't die immediately. You know what I mean? He lived there for a bit. Then he died, as the Bible said, by his sons. So let's get into it. All right, this is the Assyrians and Babylonians revered many of the same gods, even though they often had different names. And this insult to Marduk, the god who had brought order out of a chaos, was intolerable and led to the king's assassination. Like what we read in the Bible, the biblical account of 2 Kings 19 gives an account of Sennacherib's death. One day, while Sennacherib was worshipping in the temple of his god Nisroch, his son Adramelech and Sharezer killed him with the sword, and they escaped to the land of Arat. And Esarhaddon, his son, succeeded him. Now listen. Now, this is not the Bible. The next part we're going to read, this is not the Bible. Assyrian inscriptions also maintain that he was killed by his sons, but differ on whether he was stabbed or crushed to death. Now, that part's irrelevant. The Bible says that what? He was killed by his sons. Assyrian history tells you that Sennacherib was killed by his sons. Whether he was stabbed, whether, you know what I mean, whether, he was stabbed or crushed, who cares? The point being is, the Bible says he was killed by his sons. You know what I mean? That's the point. Now, but a matter of fact, let me read some more. But differ on whether he was stabbed or crushed to death. So Sagala Stephen Bertman writes, Sennacherib was stabbed to death by an assassination. Possibly one of his sons, or according to another account, was crushed to death by a monumental winged bull that's happened to be standing beneath. But already they're saying that he was stabbed. So, you know what I mean? But the point being is his sons took his life, which goes with the Bible. So, it shows that the Bible is not a fairy tale. The Bible is history and can be found in other sources of information of other empires, not even who don't even care about Israelites. Okay, well, the rest goes into what happened after his assassination, but you got the point that you need is that, listen, history proves that, you know what I mean, the king Sennacherib, he was killed by his sons. You know what I mean? I got another question. Okay, before I answer your question, do you understand my answer? First and foremost, that we are a few in number. Because sometimes I'm answering your questions and no one's hearing my answers. So no, I'm not being rude either. Do you understand my answer first? All right, I've got a sub question. Salakia, in regards to lineage, how would we know if Israelites had a children with Africans when they lived there? Well, the truth is you won't know. And don't beat your head up about it. You know what I mean? The Bible is proving you're an Israelite. And listen, we are scattered in the four corners of the earth. Are there going to be Israelites in Nigeria? Yes. Are there going to be Israelites in Ghana? Yes. Are there Israelites in England? Yes, man. We are scattered in the four corners of the earth. So Israelites are going to be everywhere. There's going to be Israelites in India, Israelites in Pakistan, Israelites in Iran, Israelites in Japan, Israelites in Vietnam. Listen, we are going to be everywhere. So, you know what I mean? Don't in your head have Israelites are never going to be in Africa. Of course we are. The Bible says we are scattered in the four corners of the earth. So yes, we're going to be in Ghana. We're going to be in, you know what I mean, wherever. So go ahead, Karen.
And the next thing again, a lot of Israelites going back to Africa. So we have Israelites in Africa.
There you go. If you didn't hear it on the mic, there have been Israelites that have gone back to Africa, so-called. So of course we're going to be there. What's that place, man? It's West Africa. Liberia. You know what I mean? There's many Judites that live in Liberia. They went there in the 60s, or something like that. And the Liberians hate them, man. They kill each other. And there's another place, I believe it's Cameroon. In Cameroon, you got, you know what I mean? If you was to go to Cameroon, there's a part of Cameroon called Jamaica. Why? Because that's how many Jamaicans went back to Cameroon. Meaning it's divided. You got Africa, Cameroon, and you got Jamaica town. That's a fact. Meaning that's how many Benjamites live in Cameroon that there's a part called Jamaica. So are we there? Yes. You know what I mean? And of course, there's Israelites that live in Ghana. You know what I mean? With Bob Marley's wife, she owns a huge patch of land out there. You know what I mean? I was on a job one time and one Ghanaian's like, you know when Bob Marley's wife? Like, yeah. Go, yeah. She lives next door to me. Like I care. Like, you know what I mean? Like I meant to do him a favor or something. I was like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? But the point being is, yeah, it want me to sing him redemption songs. I don't know, you know what I mean? But the point being is, you know what I mean? Listen, Israelites are there. Bob Marley's wife is an Israelite, and she lives in Ghana next to some Ghanaian who no one knows of, but you know what I mean? She's there. So are we everywhere? Absolutely. So
can I
yeah.
read Deuteronomy 28, verse 64?
Yeah.
Just for the answer that person and the question. Deuteronomy 28, verse 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other.
There you go, man. Listen, man, the Lord shall scatter us among all people, and we shall be scattered from one end of the earth even to the other. What does that mean? Everywhere. So the focus isn't even Africa. We are scattered everywhere for our sins, man. But that's a curse. And what makes that a curse? Because every nation should be in their homeland. And of course, we as a people, we are the only people that, because of our sins, don't have a homeland, and we're scattered in everyone else's homeland. That's a curse. So we are everywhere. Why? Because we are fulfilling the curses of the Bible. You know what I mean? So yes, we will be in Nigeria, we will be in Ghana, and guess what? We are everywhere. The emphasis ain't just where you want them to be. You know what I mean? We are everywhere, okay? So you understand, you said, Thawada, you answered my question. Okay then, ain't no sweat. So you got your answer. Good to go. All right then. So we read about how Sennacherib died. Let's get some more. All right, so you know what I mean? So after the Assyrian Empire, does anyone know which empire came next? I'll give you a minute. So once the Assyrian Empire fell, you know what I mean? Like, which empire rose up next? All right, for time's sake, it was the Babylonian Empire. So once Assyria was no more, then what you had the kingdom of Babylon. So I mean, for the time's sake, I'll do a class in it, not next week, probably the week after. But you know, there's also history of when we dealt with the Babylonians as well, man. So if you kind of give me Jeremiah 1. All right, so let's get Jeremiah 1. I'll find the verse I'm looking for. Slack it. It's Jeremiah 2. No, my apologies. Jeremiah 1 and 13. That's what I need. In the meantime, I'll answer this question real quick. So, sister goes, "Can I understand?" I meant, how would we know we don't have Africans in our lineage as we live there, and some of our ancestors could have mixed with them, or could that have wiped out during slavery? All right, this is the easiest way to understand it. If your ancestors were on the ships, you're the Israelite. Regardless of what happened in Africa, listen, the curse is for the Israelites. Israelites fulfilled that curse by being put on them ships. So whatever your dad did in West Africa, you know what I mean, 500 years ago, your lineage ended up going on those ships, meaning what? You're an Israelite. Africans sold Israelites. So you know what I mean? So don't think too technical about it. Listen, if you fulfill the prophecies of the Bible, then that's you. You know what I mean? It's as easy as that. Don't forget, but maybe, you know, some African here or there now, man. Israelites, for their sins against the Lord, went on the ships. You're an Israelite. Your ancestry goes back to those ships. So whatever your parents did in West Africa, who knows, you know what I mean? In the 1100s, in the 1200s, 1300s, 1400s, it's irrelevant. Your lineage goes back to those ships. You're an Israelite. If that's more easier to, if that makes it more understandable, Thawada. Right? He said, "Can I understand Thawada?" All right then. But then, yeah, let's get Jeremiah 1 and 13.
The book of Jeremiah 1 verse 13. And the word of the Lord came unto me the second time, saying, What seest thou? And I said, I see a seething pot, and the face thereof is towards the north.
All right, so now in a vision, the Lord showed Jeremiah a seething pot. The word seething means to be a boiling. So the Lord showed Jeremiah a boiling pot. Imagine, you know, you're about to, you know, boil something in a pot, and the mist and the steam is, you know, rising out of the pot. In a vision, that's what the Lord showed the prophet Jeremiah, a seething pot, and its face was towards the north. Why is that? Because the empire of Babylon was north of Jerusalem. So meaning the Lord's angry and he's sending the Babylonians against us. So this is after Hezekiah's dead. This is many kings on afterwards. We started sinning, and like how the Assyrian Empire took the northern kingdom, the Babylonian Empire carried away the southern kingdom into Babylon. So we got the Lord angry. This time, the Lord exiled us by this time the Babylonian Empire. All right, so you mean that was the prophet Jeremiah prophesying it. So let's get 2 Kings 20 and 12.
Kings 20, verse 12. Kadawang kan. 2 Kings 20, verse 12. At that time, Baladan,
Mm-hmm.
the son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letter and a present unto Ezekiah, for he had heard that Ezekiah had been sick.
Okay, so now at this time, while the Assyrian Empire was still reigning in Babylon, they had their own king, Marduk Baladan. Now, if you notice, a lot of Babylonian names are after Babylonian gods. So even the god in ancient Babylon, Marduk, is a part of his name. I believe even Baladan is a Babylonian god. So meaning this king, he heard about Hezekiah being sick, and he wrote a letter to Hezekiah, seeing if he's all right. Read up.
Verse 13. And Ezekiah hearkened unto them and showed them all the house of his precious things, the silver and gold and the
I,
species.
I got yeah. So now what happened? The king came to Hezekiah, meaning what? He came on a journey to Jerusalem, and Hezekiah, he showed him everything. You know what I mean? He's giving him the Torah of Jerusalem, showed him everything, all the gold, the silver, you know what I mean? Their revenue. You know what I mean? Hezekiah was trying to be nice. Read on.
And the pieces and the precious ointment and all the house of his armor and all that was found in the treasury. There was nothing in his house, nor in all dominion that Ezekiah showed them not.
So meaning Hezekiah showed Marduk, Baladan, everything, man. There was nothing Hezekiah showed him not. Meaning the whole operation he had, Hezekiah showed this heathen while he was dealing with man. And let's find out what happened next. Reader.
Verse 14. Then came Isaiah the prophet unto King Ezekiah, and said unto him, What said these men? What said these men, and from whence came they unto thee? And Ezekiah said, They are come from a far country, even from Babylon.
So now the prophet Isaiah, so the same prophet that is the writer of the book of Isaiah in Kings, he's here too. So it's the same Isaiah. And if you read in the book of Isaiah, you'll read about the same account. So if you read Isaiah, you'll read this same thing as well. So Isaiah comes to Hezekiah like, what are these men? Where are they from? Meaning, why are these men here? Like, you know what I mean? So Isaiah is asking Hezekiah like, you know what I mean? What business do these men have here? Read up.
Verse 15. And he said, What have they seen in thine house? And Ezekiah answered, All the things that are in mine house have they seen. There is nothing among my treasure that I have not shown them.
So with Hezekiah, he was honest. He told Isaiah, listen, I've showed him everything, There's nothing these men have not seen that we have. Read on.
Verse 16. And Isaiah said unto Ezekiah, Hear the word of the Lord. Behold, the day come that all that is in thine house and that which thy father have laid up in stores, and this day shall be carried into Babylon, nothing shall be left, saith the Lord.
And there you go. Listen, that same day, Isaiah prophesied that, listen, what you show them one day, all of that is going into Babylon, man. You show these Babylonians this. A day's coming where those same Babylonians, they're going to take all of this, man. And why did this happen? Because Hezekiah was trying to join another nation, man. The Assyrian Empire was around, and he thought, what? If he was to join to the Babylonians for help, you know what I mean? I'm going to show them everything. I'm going to make an allegiance with them. Isaiah told him the word of the Lord. Listen, those same Babylonians you're trying to impress, they're going to take everything from this place, man. And you know what I mean? I'm going to show you. So now, that same Babylonian king, Marduk-Baladan, this is him here. He's on the right-hand side of this relief. This one here. And listen, so Marduk-Baladan, Israel, and that's him there. I mean, the Bible doesn't make characters up. That right there is him. And if you notice that hat on his head, that is a Assyrian Babylonian hat, because the Assyrian and the Babylonian Empire had a similar dress code, and that was a hat that, you know, they liked to wear. Just like in the Bible, we wear like a crown, a war scarf, a headpiece. In the Babylonian and Assyrian Empire, that was a hat that they liked to wear. You know what I mean? There you go, man. So Marduk-Baladan is real, man. He's a real character. You know, that's what you want to call him. You know what I mean? It's a real man that did exist, man. You know what I mean? 1 second. I've got one more thing to show you. Just got the Babylonians. I'll just tie this one up. All right. So yeah, this is an artifact. Also, I can get me 2 Kings 24 and 8.
2 Kings 24, verse 8. Book of 2 Kings 24, verse 8. Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months, and his mother name was Neshuta, the daughter of Elanthan of Jerusalem.
Okay, so now we're talking about a king in the Bible called Jehoiakim and his rule and his reign. Read on.
Verse 19. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father had done.
So now, unlike Hezekiah, as time went on, this man began to be king, and he was evil. He was like Hezekiah that, you know, done the right thing. This king, you know, served idols, done, you know, things that the Lord told us not to do. And this king, Jehoiakim, did evil in the sight of the Lord. Read on.
Come. Verse 10. At that time, the servant of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged.
All right, so now this is when the Babylonians came up against Jerusalem. Like what Isaiah told Hezekiah, listen, everything here is going to be taken onto Babylon. And it didn't happen that same day. Hezekiah died. There was another king. But this is when it happened. So now this is the fulfillment of what Isaiah told Hezekiah many years later. Read on.
Verse 11. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against the city, and his servants did besiege it. Verse 12. And Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, and his mother, and his servants, and his princes, and his officers, and the king of Babylon took him in the 8 years of his reign.
Okay, so now in the Bible it says the king Jehoiakim we had, the Babylonian king, it took him in the 8th year of his reign. So now again, this is from the Bible history book. This is a Babylonian relief, and it's written in Babylonian writing. And I'll read what it says. You can just show them that. So this is what one of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon at the time, this is what one of his writers wrote down. Of course, you know what I mean? So he's writing down Babylonian history of what happened. And of course, you know what I mean, we can't read that, but we can read the translation of it, right? So it reads, so far, the only written evidence from Babylon dealing with these events in the Bible is described in the cuneiform text. So that writing you saw, that's called a cuneiform, which means wedge form. So it's like your 1 arrow, 2 arrows, and you know they had a writing style from that. It reads, in the 7th year, i.e. of Nebuchadnezzar, 599 BC, in the month of Chislev, November, December, the king of Babylon assembled his army, and after he had invaded the land of Hatti, which is Palestine, so the Babylonians called Palestine Hatti, you know, that's what they called it. He laid siege to the city of Judah on the 2nd day of the month Adar, which in a Babylonian calendar would be the 16th of March. He conquered the city and took the king Jehoiakim a prisoner. Listen, this is in Babylonian records, what the Bible says. He installed in his place a king, Zedekiah, of his own choice. And after he had received rich tributes, he sent them forth to Babylon. So meaning the Bible's telling you this happened. And even Babylonian history is telling you, listen, like that happened. So, you know what I mean? So people saying the Bible's not real and all those things, you know, like you just have to laugh really, because the Bible and history go hand in hand. So that's the class. You know what I mean? Hope answered everyone's questions. Hope you enjoyed the class also as well. With that, we're going to get to the announcements and the prayer.